And we're live.
Hello and welcome to another live demonstration. So we're in October, and October means Inktober. Now if you've not heard about it, it was introduced by artist and illustrator Jake Parker, and the idea is you draw something for the 31 days of October in ink, so pen, and it doesn't have to be detailed, it just can be a quick sketch. The idea is to get people drawing and to get into good practices of drawing and to draw every day if possible. Now I've done it for the past few years, and I've seen a number of people on Facebook, and if you just look on the internet you'll be able to see what people are doing. Last year was my first year I did one every day, and I must admit it was a little difficult because you find time. It doesn't have to be a lot of time, but it's finding the time or being inspired. I think a lot of it was. With Inktober, you often can get a reference sheet with a word on it, and that can help you decide on what your subject's going to be that day. You don't have to follow it. It's all just to get people drawing and to have fun. So last year, like I said, I did one every day for 31 days. I didn't use the crib sheet. I chose a subject I like, which is cats, and just did one every day. And a lot of them all using ink. So this is coloured ink and pen, just a bit of Zentangle. So you can see that's a dip pen and sepia ink. It's just having fun. I was looking at different techniques. So the same subject for me, but looking at different techniques and how to use the different pens. These are just a few. And what it did do, some of the times it was quite difficult. I enjoyed doing it when I had a go. Some are very simple. Right up to the biro. That's just a biro on a piece of paper. So you can do it on a napkin. Right up to the 31st, which is a black cat for Halloween. So you can see it can be done. And what you do is you post your pictures onto the internet, and it's a way of having fun. So this October, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, with each live demo I do throughout October, I think there's about 4 that will fit in, I'm going to do an ink piece. And so I'm going to explore different pieces in different kinds of ink. So it can be pen, it can be something like a coloured ink like this. And so, 4 pieces in 4 different pieces of ink. I'm not going to do one every day, but I'm going to have a go at the challenge. So it's up to you what you have a go with it. And I think people are grasping it and enjoying being part of it for October. So that's Jake Parker's Inktober. When I first had a go at doing this fungus, fungi is the plural, fungus or funguses. A fungus is single, fungi is plural, or fungus is plural as well. I had to look that up just to make sure. When I was doing this, I originally started with a drawing pen, one of those fine drawing pens, but I found myself getting too obsessed with detail. So I changed, and I picked up the Pentel, I think it's called a drawing brush or pen brush, that's what it's called. So the ink is permanent, like the permanent pen I was using, but what it's got is a brush tip. And what that gave me was a lot more freedom of marks rather than very fine detail. So sometimes change the type of nib you're using, change the pen you're using, and you'll find you free yourself up. So you'll see I can get some very fine lines and some thicker marks, which I wasn't getting with my original choice of pen. You'll find your favourite pen and you'll be happy to pick it up, but sometimes it's nice to feel something different in your hand, to feel how another piece works. So you can see here I can get a lovely thick solid line or very light broken line. Now, my aim is not to go round the fungus, which I do know the name. It's an Amanita, well, fly Amanita is what it's called, Amanita muscaria. But it's one of those iconic toadstools. I did look up what the difference between a toadstool and a mushroom is, and it says there isn't really much difference apart from they're seen as different items. So the toadstools are often used to describe a poisonous mushroom, and mushrooms are seen as edible. Now this one is poisonous, but deaths from it are very rare. It's usually an hallucinogenic reaction, and to be honest, it's used in some religious ceremonies, and it's just one of those beautiful red spotted iconic fungus or mushrooms that you see in popular culture, in games, on cards, and to be honest, they're quite easy to see in the wild. So this is my own image. I think it's an old one because it's starting to curl, and what happens is it continues to grow. So it grows from a very small little white ball and then grows upwards, producing the cap and the gills and the iconic red and white, and it then continues to grow and curls in on itself. So this must be an older one rather than those domed red and white ones you see. Now these are the gills. It's starting to split as it continues to grow. Just keeping it very broken. I think here there's a break, so I'll colour that in. What I was also finding with the other pen was being able to fill in. I was doing a lot of cross-hatching, and this is where changing the materials you're using really helps, because I was getting frustrated and was going, I don't want to do this anymore, it's not working, and was willing to just stop. Whereas if I just continued, I probably would have got there, but by just changing the pen, I was much happier, much able to create something that I had visualised. Nice, bit more of a solid on the top because I want to change the texture and have a different feel. Now, this is a permanent pen once dry, and drying and curing are two different things. With these pen, they do dry quite quickly, but not always as quickly as you think. So you need to leave it a few extra minutes. I'm not talking hours or days, I'm talking a few extra minutes. And test your pen. Test how long it takes to dry, because if I put water on now, there could be some movement with the black. It's only because it isn't fully dry. So a few more moments, or what I might do is use the hairdryer. Allows the ink to cure as well as dry, and then you won't get any, or shouldn't get any movement from a permanent ink. Look at that, look at those marks and textures you're getting. So giving it some context, there's a twig here. Bit of a, break that up, and some leaves. This one curls up here and comes around, and then it's got a lovely curl over over here. Now that is darker underneath, so let's fill that in, and you can see how easy it is. So the pen goes on really smoothly and offers you a really black finish really quite quickly. So you can see here, just using that brush to fill in those dark areas. I'm just looking at the cluster I've got, it's quite confined, so I might take things out a little bit more, add another stick.
Anita?
Yes.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
From me actually, just that, because I like that pen a lot. Is it refillable?
Yes, absolutely, sorry. This is really useful. It's, you know, fountain pens, I use those a lot as well. It's got a refill like a fountain pen, so you just pop it in and off you go. So you can see there, pentel, brush, and it just makes it feel nice. And that's something important when you're working with a pen. It feels nice. Not only the marks you can make, but it feels nice in the hand. Putting the lid on the top elongates it, and so it looks like a really stylish little pen. You get refills with the pen, so I think you get two refills. So it will go on for a long time. I just see there the refill. I've used this quite often, and I've hardly seen any of the ink disappear, and I haven't refilled it. So yes, it's a refillable pen, which again is another great quality, so you don't have to throw it away and dispose of, and you can reuse and use your refills, which is much more satisfying than just coming to the end of a pen. Right, so what I'm going to do is have a look at the original, see if I can bring some more details. So they call this a fragile stem. Basically, you can see how thin the veil on the stem is. A bit of darkness under here, and so it's starting to flake off or come away. The gills underneath are white, which you can see are coming round here. I'm just going to give a little bit more tonal value. And this is where I was getting lost when I was using the drawing pen. I was getting too lost in detail and tonal values. So the white area underneath, you can see that put some more of these white dots on. These kind of wart-like areas, they are part of the fungus when it's very young. It's kind of a veil, and as it grows, these get smaller, if you know what I mean. So it grows, they don't change, but they stay where they are. And so it starts off very small, very white, and continues to grow, and these just split apart and stay on the surface. They can get washed off in the rain, and an older fungus will have less of these white spots. Like I say, this is older because the colour's fading as well, and it's splitting. So the colour, the bright red when they're very young and domed, this is an older version, and it's just starting to get towards the end of its life. But I quite like that. It kind of takes it a different shape from those iconic little shapes that you see, those dome shapes. So this is why I've chosen this. What I'm trying to do is it dips in the middle, and when you're using a pen, it's actually difficult to show that dip. It's easier with colour because you can use your colours to make it darker in the middle and lighter on the outside. So I'm just trying with my pen to suggest the rounded edge here, and then it coming into the middle again from these edges. It's actually quite difficult because you do have to be quite light, and I don't want to do too much because I'm not really concentrating on the detail. So here I did a broken line, but now looking at it I want to do a much more solid line, and then maybe a little bit more solid around here. So with a pen you have to think about how you're suggesting the dark areas. Now this is quite dark, so I have to be careful not to overdo it because I want a little bit, more delicate areas. So I know this is white, but it's underneath, so it has a shadow. So let's see if I can pick up. Now I'm using a watercolour paper, mainly because I like the texture, and that just offers me, look, see there, that's what I was trying to do, that dry brush. Now because the brush is quite wet, it is a little bit more difficult to get that dry brush mark. But that's this reason why I've used the watercolour paper to give me that texture. So this leaf has some veins coming over here. It comes round. Actually, let me have a look at that shape. Comes around there. Let's put a bit of detail in here. I don't know, let's do another leaf. So, coming round. There's a lot of detail in the original, and to be honest I can't actually see what half of it is doing, so I'm having to just be a little bit creative with some of my marks and details. What I felt was at the moment it was very stuck in that area, so I'm just trying to take it out a little bit to give it a much more balanced composition. And these things happen when you're drawing, because like I say, I've done this before because I tried it with a different pen, but as I'm drawing now it's turning out differently because I'm seeing something differently. So no drawing turns out the same every time you do it, and each time you learn something or you adapt and change something, and I think that's part of the fun. So don't get overwhelmed that you're trying to do the same thing again, because that won't happen. What you do is you kind of learn, you adapt, you rejudge on the drawing that you're doing at the time. So this branch needs to be, I think that's giving. Again, I step back, I look back, it just helps me look at details. What I'm not able to do it easily is to get the mid value. So I'm just having to be a bit creative with my darks. There you go. I can use this brush, and that's the marks I was looking for. Because it's very wet, like I said, it is a little difficult to do. If you just catch it on its edge, you are able to pick up some detail. Okay, I think I'm going to overwork, so time to stop, have a quick look, see if there's any more detail I can put on. No. So, like I say, you need to let that dry, but also cure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a short break, and then we'll come back, and I'm just going to blast it with a hairdryer, just so I know it's fully dry. And then when I put my next layer on, it's not going to contaminate. So join me in a minute.
Hi, I'm Ali Hargreaves and I'm here to introduce you to Ready Steady Paints. This is a monthly art subscription box for 6 to 11-year-olds. Ready Steady Paints has been designed by today's artists to support, develop and encourage those of tomorrow. I have had over 20 years experience as a primary school teacher. I've worked as an artist in residence in a number of primary schools and I'm also a mum. I've seen how creative subjects, especially art, has declined over the years and has been taught less and less in the educational system. We feel very passionate about filling in this artistic void. We're so excited to share the experience with you and your children. We hope to give children a chance to produce beautiful pieces of art with high quality materials. Following a hand-curated syllabus, each month subscribed children will receive a box full of high-quality artistic goodies in the post. Using these materials, they'll be able to follow the online tutorials delivered by me and accessed through the Ready Steady Paint website. All this will be conveniently delivered to your door at an affordable cost. There is so much to learn and so many wonderful activities to complete and rewards to gain. So what are you waiting for? Join us on this journey of artistic fun and discovery.
And we're back.
Hello and welcome back. So in that short break, I've just given this a quick blast with a hairdryer just to make sure it's dry. So, like I say, it's not long, it's a minute or two longer than you would normally wait, but just to ensure that it's fully dry and permanent. It's not. But
You're getting your midtones now.
I'm getting my midtones now. Let's get a bit of... So it does dry permanent because I've used this pen before, but it's just not drying there. Not a big deal. I'm not actually worried about that. It's really not dry.
Blimey, look at that.
I know. That is a surprise because previously it's absolutely fine. So I'm going to do something different. Going to use some Bombay ink. So this again is water soluble once wet, once dry it's permanent, let's hope. A good shake because it's settled, and actually I've had this around a while, so the stoppers, the rubber stopper, my fault, what happened was once I put the lid on I'd left the rubber stopper in, and what it's done is it's perished a little bit. Not a big deal, I can transfer it, and I don't need a lot. A bit of water, because it's actually very strong and highly pigmented, so I don't need a lot. Look at that, wow. I obviously didn't blast it long enough.
We need a longer advert.
Yeah. Never mind, these things happen. A lot of it is because there's a lot of ink on here, because it's a highly pigmented and very wet pen. So do something like this. So let's drop it in, and then I'm going to blow it. Oops, lost my blower. What I can do is just take it back. There we go. Take some of that contamination off. And I am truly surprised at how much that is still not dry, because I thought I'd blasted it long enough, but obviously not. Bear with me a minute. I've dropped my blower.
You find it?
No. So I'm going to have to move it. So you can see on the paper that there's a dip in the middle, and this is actually, I did it on purpose in the middle because I want that dip, which means the colour will pool in the middle, and that's called cockling. But with the colour pooling in the middle, I'm going to get that deep, dark colour that I was looking for. And again, I need to let this dry. So I'm going to blast it with a hairdryer. Yay! Okay, a little disappointed with that, but not a problem. Do it again. The colour's not what I expected. Because of that contamination, it's gone a little muddy. Normally what you would do is you'd do it again, but I'm going to persevere. That's better. See there now, less contamination. So it is obviously dry now. Let's take a little bit of colour off. That's much better colour. So again, needs to dry. Again, now just straight colour. So the first area was done with a very wet colour. Now I'm just putting some stronger colour on. Still starting from the middle where I want the most concentrated colour. Oh, how good. I've never been very good with this blowy. Just wanted it to be a little bit redder. That should be dry enough for the area I want to work on. So patience, I think, is the key for a lot of this. Or more time, which I haven't actually got. So now I'm going to work back in. It should be dry enough for me now to be able to pick up and put some of white on. Now this is a white gel pen. And I'm able to bring it back. So you can see there I was surprised with the pen moving, as I hadn't anticipated it, because I thought it was dry, even though I had used this before and it was, I must have left it much longer. But this doesn't mean that I can just walk away and say, oh, it's ruined, because it isn't. There's so many ways I can bring this back. What it's going to be is different from the one I'd done previously, my test piece, but have its own unique characteristics. I can use this white pen now. I like this one, it's very opaque and really able to bring back the details. Again, I'm making sure that the ink is dry in the areas I'm putting the pen on. Let's see if I can bring back a little bit more light here. So those, to be honest, what it's done, like Gary said, is it's actually given me some mid-tones which I hadn't got because I wasn't able to do with the pen. So that means it's water soluble once while wet. So I can move it with a pen, but once dry, and hopefully I'll be able to show you once this is dry, I'll demonstrate that it does dry, waterproof. I think actually I'm not displeased with this at all. I think it's actually coming back. So the mix of the black and the white pen. Just bringing back the white areas. Maybe some more on here. So just here, where you can see the light hitting. It's not the exact colour of the mushroom, but it was colour I liked. It was a red one, because other than that the colour I had would have been too orange, so I'd rather have gone for much stronger red than a too orange colour. Put one here, a few more, and again I can go back in with the brush, maybe give myself a little bit more shading. So these white don't just look like blobs, they look like they've got some shadow underneath and they're part of this mushroom. I think I'm pretty much there. Yeah. Okay, so last thing I want to do is just see, because it should be dry now. I'm going to show you that. There you go. So all it was because it was quite heavy and a lot of ink, I literally just had not let it dry because there's no contamination there at all. So, impatience, that's what it is. So to celebrate the Inktober challenge, this is an ink piece using the Pentel brush pen, which the ink is permanent once it's dried and cured. Bombay ink, so coloured ink, will dry permanent again once it's dried and cured. And the white gel pen, so that's 3 different types of ink on one little piece. And I hope you enjoyed that, and join us next time for another ink drawing.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.